Everyone talks about the legendary Skylines, Fairlady Zs, and RX-3s when it comes to 1970s Japan. But after digging through old magazines, auction catalogs, and hidden JDM forums, I realized the true sleepers weren't the poster cars. Stick around as I reveal 10 overlooked Japanese sleepers from the 1970s. Number 10. Toyota Corona 2000 GT RT55. At first glance, the Toyota Corona just looked like your grandfather's Sunday car. Boxy, plain, and honestly a little boring. Nothing about it screamed performance. But here's the surprise. The special RT55 Toyota Corona 2000 GT was hiding something wild under its hood. Toyota actually gave it the same 2.0-liter DOHC straight-4 engine from their supercar, the legendary Toyota 2000 GT. Imagine that, a family sedan carrying a supercar heart. The engine had 1988 cubic centimeters, and it made about 110 horsepower, which in the early 1970s was crazy for a normal sedan. Most family cars back then struggled to even reach 65 to 70 horsepower. And the Corona? It weighed just over 1,000 kilograms. That meant it had a really good power-to-weight ratio, letting it accelerate way faster than anyone expected. Performance-wise, it could actually outrun many small European cars of that era, including sporty compacts from brands like Alfa Romeo and Fiat. And while they looked fast, the Corona didn't, which made it the perfect sleeper. The funniest part? At a stoplight, nobody even glanced at it. They thought it was just another slow, old Toyota. But once the light turned green and the driver floored the pedal, the Corona would take off. Number 9. Nissan Violet 710 SSS. The Nissan Violet was never a car that turned heads. On the surface, it honestly looked like something your teacher would drive to school. Small, plain, and definitely not the kind of car anyone would call exciting. But the secret came when you looked at the SSS version, because that's where Nissan went all out. Instead of giving it an ordinary engine, they dropped in the L18 motor, a 1.8-liter inline-4 that made around 115 horsepower. That might not sound like much today, but in the early 1970s it was impressive, especially when you remember that the Violet itself was a lightweight car, weighing just over 950 to 1,000 kilograms. With a strong engine and light body, the Violet was way quicker than it looked. But here's where the story gets even cooler. The Violet SSS was not just a street car. Nissan secretly turned it into a rally machine. While everyone was busy worshipping the Skyline GTR, the Violet was out there tackling one of the toughest events in the world, the East African Safari Rally. This was a brutal race with crazy dirt tracks, mud, rocks, and long stages that broke down even the toughest European cars. But the Violet didn't just survive. It actually won stages and shocked competitors, humiliating cars from brands like Peugeot and Ford that were supposed to dominate. And that is exactly why the Violet SSS was such a perfect sleeper. On city roads, it looked like any other compact sedan, but underneath, it was hiding something that no one expected. Even today, people talk about Skylines and Fairlady Zs when they think of classic Nissan performance, but the Violet SSS deserves more respect. It was one of those underappreciated JDM legends of the 1970s that proved looks could be deceiving. Number 8. Mazda Loose Rotary RX-4. Now when people think Mazda rotaries, they jump straight to RX-7 or RX-3, but the RX-4, totally forgotten. This was a family coupe or sedan that secretly carried Mazda's 13B rotary engine, a 1.3-liter Vonkel that revved like crazy and made around 130 horsepower. Doesn't sound like much, but the car weighed under 1,100 kilograms, which made it properly quick for the time. The crazy part? It looked luxurious. Big chrome bumpers, formal roofline, vinyl seats. Nobody thought this thing could run. And yet, the loose rotary shocked people who underestimated it. In fact, some owners swapped in racing spec rotaries and turned these into highway monsters. Imagine pulling up next to what looks like a middle-aged banker's car and then watching it scream past you at 9,000 RPM. That's the RX-4 in a nutshell. Number 7. Mitsubishi Galant GTO MR. If the Galant name sounds boring today, wait till you hear about this one. The GTO MR was a short-lived monster. Built in 1970 to 71, it came with a 2.0-liter DOHC Saturn engine, making 125 horsepower. But here's the thing, it was rear-wheel drive, super light, and designed with racing in mind. Mitsubishi wanted to enter touring car championships, and this was their secret weapon. The sad part? The MR was produced in tiny numbers, maybe around 800 units. So while the Skyline GTR stole headlines, the GTO-MR quietly became a collector's ghost. Back then, if you saw one on the street, you'd never guess it could keep up with European coupes like the BMW 2002. That's the definition of a 70s sleeper. Number 6. Isuzu 117 Coupe. Isuzu doesn't get enough love. Most people think of their trucks and buses, but in the 70s, they actually built one of the coolest sleepers ever, the 117 Coupe. It was designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, so it had smooth Italian styling, almost like a mini Ferrari. But under the hood, a 1.6-liter DOHC engine pushing about 130 horsepower in 1968, then improved in the 70s. This was the first Japanese car with a DOHC engine in production. People dismissed it as just an Isuzu, but it was hiding European-level performance and handling. Plus, it ran quietly under the radar because Isuzu didn't market it like Toyota or Nissan did. And fun fact, in Japan, this car became known as the gentleman's sleeper because only people who really knew cars understood how special it was. Now here's something to think about. What if I told you one of the biggest sleepers of the 70s wasn't a coupe or a sports car at all, but a plain-looking business sedan? The twist is, under the hood it was hiding the heart of a race car. Curious? Stick around, because when we get to number 4, you'll see exactly what I mean. Number 5. Toyota Mark II 2000G SS. The Toyota Mark II was always seen as the sensible choice. It was supposed to be the step up from the Corolla, a bigger and more comfortable car for families. Most people thought of it as a calm commuter, something practical but never exciting. But then came the 2000 GSS version, and that is where Toyota quietly flipped the script. Instead of keeping it slow and ordinary, Toyota gave it the 18RG engine. This was a 2.0-liter DOHC 4-cylinder, and back in 1973, that was advanced tech. It made about 120 horsepower, which may not sound like a lot today, but in the early 70s, for a car that looked like a family sedan, it was honestly insane. Most rivals at the time barely touched 80 horsepower. The best part was how it behaved. The engine was smooth and loved to rev, and Toyota paired it with a proper 5-speed manual gearbox, which made driving it feel sporty instead of boring. Imagine your dad's sensible car suddenly feeling like something you could take on a mountain road for fun. That was the Mark II GSS. Number 4. Nissan Cedric 2000GX. This is the car I hinted at earlier, and honestly, it is one of the best examples of a true sleeper. The Nissan Cedric was the kind of car your dad's office might use as a company car. It was big, boxy, and covered in chrome, with a very serious and formal design. Most people would never even think to call it sporty. But then came the 2000GX version, and this is where the surprise hides. Under that formal body, Nissan gave it the L20 engine, a 2.0-liter straight 6 that made around 115 to 130 horsepower, depending on the tune. For the early 1970s, that was a strong output, especially in a car that looked so boring and official. The engine was smooth, had good torque, and gave the Cedric way more pace than anyone expected from a big sedan. What made it even more shocking was how the car delivered its performance. The Cedric was tuned for comfort. It had a quiet cabin, soft seats, and suspension designed for smooth rides. So when you put your foot down, it stayed calm and silent while actually building up serious speed. Inside, it came with proper features for the time like plush upholstery, wood trim, and even optional air conditioning, which made it feel like a luxury sedan. From the driver's seat, you got the best of both worlds. Comfort when you wanted to relax, and hidden performance when you wanted to push it. To me, this is the perfect definition of a sleeper car. Nobody expected it, nobody talked about it. The Cedric 2000GX proved that Nissan knew how to hide performance in sight, and that makes it one of the coolest underrated JDM legends of the 70s. Number 3. Mazda Capella Rotary RX2. The Mazda RX2 is one of those cars that barely gets talked about today, but it was actually Mazda's first proper rotary performance sedan. Everyone remembers the RX3 because of its racing success, and of course the RX7 later became a legend. But the RX2 came before both of them, and in its time, it was a real shocker. Under the hood, the RX2 had the 12A rotary engine, a twin rotor that could rev smoothly all the way to about 7,000 RPM. It produced around 120 horsepower, which may not sound like a big number now, but here's the catch. The car only weighed a little over 900 kilograms. That gave it an excellent power-to-weight ratio, and in practice, it meant the RX2 was seriously quick for the early 1970s. From the outside, though, it had square headlights, chrome trim, and a neat but very formal shape. But the moment you turned the key and revved it, the rotary gave off that unique high-pitched scream. And right then, you knew this was not just another family car. Mazda also entered the RX2 in touring car racing, where it proved that the rotary engine could compete with and even beat bigger traditional engines. This gave Mazda confidence to keep pushing rotaries into more models. Inside, the RX2 kept things simple and practical, with enough comfort for families but also the lightness and handling that enthusiasts love. It really managed to blend both sides' ordinary looks with an extraordinary engine. Even though it is overshadowed today by the RX-3 and RX-7, the RX-2 deserves recognition. Number 2. Isuzu Bellet GTR. This car is seriously underappreciated. The Isuzu Bellet GTR was actually Japan's first real GTR, long before Nissan made the name legendary. Built between 1969 and 1973, it was rare from the very start, with only about 1,400 units ever produced. That alone makes it special. Under the hood, it had a 1.6-liter DOHC four-cylinder engine that pushed out about 130 horsepower. In such a small and lightweight body, this gave the Bellet quick acceleration and sharp handling. It was a car that loved corners, and drivers said it felt nimble and alive compared to many heavier rivals. On the racetrack, the Bellet GTR proved itself again and again. It competed in Japanese touring car racing and shocked people by beating cars from much bigger brands. The sad part is that Isuzu didn't have the global recognition of Toyota or Nissan. So even though the Bellet GTR was a genuine performance machine, it never reached the fame it deserved. Today, only hardcore JDM fans know about it, while everyone else has almost forgotten it ever existed. But back then, if you saw one on the road or at a race, you knew it was something special. It was the car that embarrassed bigger rivals and proved that even Isuzu could build a true driver's car. Number 1. Mitsubishi Lancer 1600 GSR. Finally, we reach the king of forgotten 70s sleepers, the Mitsubishi Lancer 1600 GSR. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a small economy sedan. Compact, simple, and plain. It was the kind of car people used for daily city driving. But Mitsubishi built this car with a very different purpose. The GSR was powered by a 1.6-liter SOHC four-cylinder engine called the 4G 32 Saturn. It made around 110 horsepower and about 137 newton-meters of torque, which may not sound huge today, but in a body that weighed only about 920 kilograms, it gave the car excellent acceleration. It was paired with a 5-speed manual gearbox at a time when most economy cars still had 4 speeds, and this made it more engaging to drive. Mitsubishi also prepared it with rally-tuned suspension, extra ground clearance, and reinforced components so it could survive punishing rally stages. The GSR used front disc brakes and rear drums, which gave it reliable stopping power for its size. Its rear-wheel drive layout gave drivers proper control and balance on both tarmac and dirt. On the inside, the car was surprisingly well equipped for the 70s. It had bucket-style front seats, a sporty 3-spoke steering wheel, and even a full set of rally-style gauges that showed oil pressure, temperature, and other vital readings. The Lancer 1600 GSR dominated the East African Safari Rally, winning back-to-back in the 1970s and proving it could handle extreme heat, rough gravel, and endless endurance. What really stands out about the Lancer GSR is that it was a complete package: lightweight, reliable engine, strong suspension, good gearing, and real motorsport DNA, all hidden in the body of a small sedan. So yeah, that's the thing about Japanese sleepers in the 1970s. They weren't the poster cars or the flashy sports coupes. They were the ones your uncle might have used to drive to work, the ones parked quietly in a neighbor's garage, hiding engines and performance that could embarrass European sports cars. Looking back, I think that's what makes them special. Japan wasn't about flexing back then. It was about building something humble that could shock you when it mattered. And honestly, after going through all this research, I realized that sleepers aren't just cars, they're kind of a philosophy. Quiet on the outside, deadly on the inside, and that's what makes them unforgettable. If you enjoyed this dive into forgotten JDM history, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because I've got more content coming.